I think of a time I was in the state prison, Oregon State Penitentiary, and I'd been invited there to give a talk to the lifers, men who were in prison for life. And I went and I gave that talk, and the talk, they asked me to come and give a talk because I had been in the process of trying to stop a grove of trees from being cut. And so I went there, and I had never been in a prison. I wasn't a journalist yet. I'd never been in a prison, and I went there alone. And I went there with, of course, stereotypes of who I'm going to be seeing and talking to. And they put me in the cafeteria at the prison with about 25 men. And visually they just were a group of men, all dressed in blue jeans, is what they were. And we had a wonderful discussion. I told them about the trees. I told them why it was important. And we had a wonderful discussion about why land and space is important to them and how much suffering they had by not being able to touch soil or smell soil or plant a seed. And that was really a remarkable discussion. But I remember the time I was changed was not that specific time, but a time I went again. And these men would make stuffed bears for one another. Not for one another, for foster children. And they'd give these out to the community. And at one ceremony, they had been secretly making bears, but for each other. Mm. And they made this announcement that, it was a group of men within the Lifers Club. We're going to be giving them to this other group of men who weren't making the bears. And they stood up and they said, "We've got bears for you." And these men stood up and they took their bears and they hugged them to them. And they got up and they stood in this picture just holding these bears. And I'm sitting there just looking at 15 men, big men, all different races, who had killed someone. And they're hugging their bear because that's who they can hug. And I just felt utterly, I've been transformed for the rest of my life with that, understanding there's so much story behind those walls. And there's so much pain and suffering and compassion behind those walls. And it's made me feel so much fuller. It's made me feel so much more humble.